The morning sun cuts through the Georgia humidity like a blade through butter. Fort Benning sprawls beneath it, a testament to American armor, to American steel, to American sacrifice. The National Armor and Cavalry Heritage Center stands at the edge of the parade grounds, its stone facade weathered by decades of sun and rain and the terrors of widows who came to remember. Inside, the air is cooler. The scent of gun oil and old metal hangs in the stillness. Display cases line the walls, filled with patches and medals and photographs of young men who grew old too fast or never grew old at all. Captain William Mitchell stands before the M1A1 Abrams tank. His reflection ghosts across its hull, superimposed over the painted number. Alpha 26, his tank, his command, his burden for 40 years. They call him Bull, always have, not because he was big or mean or aggressive, because when he set his mind to something, when he dug in, nothing on God's green earth could move him. Not enemy fire, not superior officers, not time itself. He is 62 years old. His hair is white now, clipped military short, the only style he has ever known. His face is weathered, mapped with lines that trace every mile he ever drove in steel, every round he ever fired, every man he ever lost. His shoulders are still broad, but they hunch now, just slightly, as if bearing invisible weight. His hands rest on the tank's armor. They tremble. Not fear, not age alone, Parkinson's disease, early stage. The doctors say he has years left. The doctors do not understand that years mean nothing when you measure your life in seconds. In the split moment between seeing the enemy and pulling the trigger, between giving the order and watching it executed, between life and death. Bull's hands shake, but his eyes do not. Behind him, 15 high school students shuffle and whisper. Their teacher, a tired woman in her 40s who has never seen war and cannot imagine it, tries to shush them. They do not understand why they are here. They do not understand that this museum is not about tanks. It is about the men inside them. Bull turns. His movement is deliberate, measured. When he was 22, he could spin on his heel, bark orders, move with the deadly grace of a predator. Now every motion is calculated, fought for, won. His voice, though, his voice is still a weapon. This, he says, and the room falls silent, is not a tank. The students stare. One boy in the back, taller than the others, with dark hair and eyes that carry too much knowledge for 16, does not stare at the tank. He stares at Bull. This is a tomb, Bull continues. This is a church. This is a classroom. Depending on the day, depending on the mission, depending on how much luck you have left in your account with God. He runs his hand along the hull. The metal is cold despite the Georgia heat. It remembers. Steel always remembers. 67 tons of armor and weapons. 1,500 horsepower. Top speed of 42 miles per hour if you are on good ground and feeling lucky. 120 millimeter main gun that can put a round through 3 feet of steel at 3 miles distance. Coaxial machine gun. Loader's machine gun. Commander's 50 cal. He pauses, swallows. The tremor in his hand spreads up his arms, but he does not lower them. And 4 men, he says quietly, 4 souls wrapped in steel and sent into hell. Driver, loader, gunner, commander. You live together, you fight together, sometimes you die together. The silence is absolute now. Even the bored students in the back have stopped whispering. February 27th, 1991, Bull says. Operation Desert Storm, the ground war. We had been bombing Iraq for 5 weeks. Then we went in, my platoon, 2nd Platoon, Charlie Company, 3rd Battalion, 66th Armor Regiment, 4 Abrams tanks, 16 men. He moves along the tank's length. Each step is careful. The Parkinson's affects his balance too, though he fights it, though he refuses to use a cane, though his pride is both his armor and his enemy. The enemy had T-72 tanks, Russian design, good tanks, not great, not like this, but good enough to kill you if you made a mistake. They were dug in along the ridge lines, hull-down positions, smart, waiting for us. Bull reaches the turret, places both hands on it. The shaking stops just for a moment, as if the tank itself lends him strength. We hit them at dawn, 4 Abrams against 11 T-72s, bad odds on paper, but we had training, we had technology, we had each other. He closes his eyes, sees it again. Always sees it again. The desert at dawn, sand turned pink by the rising sun. the thermal sights showing enemy armor as white-hot ghosts against the cool ground, the sound of the main gun firing, a crack like thunder contained in a bottle, the entire tank rocking back against its suspension, the smell of cordite and hot brass and fierce sweat. We killed 9 of them in 4 minutes, Bull says. His voice is flat now, stripped of emotion, the way soldiers tell war stories when the stories are still too close to the bone. 4 minutes, 9 enemy tanks burning. The other 2 tried to run. We killed them too. He opens his eyes. The boy in the back, the one with the 2 knowing eyes, has moved closer. Bull recognizes something in that face. Something familiar. Something that makes his chest tighten. We didn't lose a single tank, Bull says. Barely got scratched. Complete victory. The kind of action they write up for medals and use in training films and tell stories about at reunions. He turns away from the tank, faces the students. And I lost a man anyway. The words hang in the air like smoke. Sergeant Rico Castellano, 28 years old, gunner, best gunner I ever served with. Could put a round through a keyhole at 2 miles, had a wife back home, had a son. Baby boy born 3 weeks before we deployed. He carried a picture in his helmet, showed it to everyone. Wouldn't shut up about that kid. Bull's voice cracks, just slightly, just enough to show that beneath the armor of 40 years, beneath the rank and the reputation and the granite exterior, there is still soft tissue. There is still pain. In the middle of this fight, one of those T-72s got a shot off before we killed it. Hit us on the side, didn't penetrate. The Abrams armor held, but the impact, the force of it threw Sergeant Castellano against the breech mechanism, broke 3 ribs, internal bleeding, and we were still in the fight. He stops, breathes. The students are frozen, hypnotized by the rawness in his voice. I had a choice, Bull says. Stop, render aid, call for medevac, save my gunner, or keep fighting. Keep the mission. Keep the pressure on the enemy. I was the platoon leader, 22 years old, 2nd lieutenant fresh out of Fort Knox, and I had to choose between 1 man and 200. The boy in the back, the one Bull now realizes he knows, speaks for the first time. You chose the mission. Bull looks at him, really looks at him. The eyes, the shape of the face, the way he stands with his weight slightly forward. Like a fighter, like someone ready to attack or run, but never surrender. Yes, Bull says, I chose the mission. We kept fighting, cleared the objective, secured the position. By the time we got Sergeant Castellano out of the tank and onto a medevac bird, he had been bleeding internally for 23 minutes. He pauses. The next words cost him something. He died on the helicopter, 40 miles from a field hospital, 40 miles from saving. And I was back on the objective, counting enemy vehicles destroyed, preparing the after-action report, being congratulated by my company commander. You were doing your duty, the teacher says. Her voice is kind, meant to comfort. She does not understand that comfort is not what Bull needs, not what he wants, not what he has earned. I was doing my duty, Bull agrees, and Sergeant Castellano's son grew up without a father, and his wife raised that boy alone. And for 40 years I have worn this uniform and told myself I made the right choice. The tactical choice, the military choice. He looks directly at the boy now, and for 40 years I have been wrong. The boy does not flinch, does not look away. My name is Tommy Castellano, he says. Sergeant Rico Castellano was my grandfather. And you said you were a hero, but my grandfather died. So what does that make you? The question hangs in the air like shrapnel, sharp and dangerous and impossible to avoid. Bull opens his mouth, closes it. For the first time in 40 years, for the first time since he pinned on the rank of captain, and swore he would never be speechless in front of subordinates or civilians or anyone, he has no answer. The tour ends in awkward silence. The teacher hurries the students out, throwing apologetic glances over her shoulder. Bull watches them go, watches Tommy Castellano walk away without looking back, his spine straight, his shoulders set, carrying the same defiant pride his grandfather carried. When they are gone, Bull stands alone in the museum, just him and the ghosts and the steel. His phone vibrates. Text message. He pulls it out with shaking hands, has to concentrate to unlock the screen. The tremor makes typing nearly impossible some days. This is one of those days. The message is not from a number he recognizes, but the words make his blood run cold. Report to Aberdeen Proving Ground, Maryland, Monday 0800, official business. This is about Sergeant Castellano. We need to talk. Colonel Hartman. Hartman. James Hartman, Bull's executive officer in Desert Storm. The only other officer who knew. The only one who understood. Who saw. Who helped Bull write the after-action report that turned a tragedy into a triumph, a death into an acceptable casualty, a moral failure into a tactical success. Bull has not spoken to Hartman in 15 years, not since Bull's promotion ceremony to captain, when Hartman, already a colonel by then, took him aside and said, "What we did was right. What we wrote was necessary. Never forget that. Never talk about it. Never let the truth muddy the mission." Bull had nodded, saluted, obeyed. For 15 years, he looks at the tanks again, Alpha 26. The number painted on its turret has faded but not disappeared. Like guilt, like memory, like the ghost of Rico Castellano, who rides in Bull's passenger seat every time he drives, who stands at his shoulder every time he looks in a mirror, who whispers in his ear every night when sleep will not come. Bull types a response with agonizing slowness, fighting the tremor, fighting time itself. "We'll be there, Mitchell." He hits send, puts the phone away, places his hand on the tank one more time. "I'm coming back to the war, Rico," he whispers. "One more time. I don't know what Hartman wants, but I know it's about you, about what I did, about what I didn't do." The tank does not answer. Steel never does. It only remembers. Bull leaves the museum. Outside, the Georgia sun hammers down. The parade ground shimmers in the heat. Young soldiers in physical training uniforms run past, calling cadence, their voices strong and sure and innocent. Bull was that young once, that sure, that innocent. He walks to his truck, a 20-year-old Ford Ranger with 200,000 miles and a gun rack in the back window and a faded Marine Corps sticker on the bumper. Wrong branch, people sometimes say. He always replies the same way. "I served with Marines in Fallujah, earned the right to the sticker." They don't argue after that. The drive home takes 15 minutes. Bull lives in a small house on the edge of town. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, kitchen that smells like coffee and gun oil. No wife. Had one once. She left after his 3rd deployment. Said she couldn't compete with the war, couldn't love a man who left more of himself in the sand each time he came back. He didn't blame her, didn't fight her, just signed the papers and let her go. No children. They tried. Didn't happen. Maybe God's mercy. What kind of father would he have been anyway? What kind of man? The kind who chooses mission over people. The kind who lets good men die while he counts victories. Inside the house, Bull sits at the kitchen table, takes out the letter he has carried in his wallet for 40 years. Folded and refolded so many times the creases are worn thin, the paper threatening to tear along the lines. He wrote it the night after Medina Ridge. Wrote it in his tent while the other officers celebrated, while the whiskey flowed and the war stories began, while men already started polishing the truth until it shined like brass. He unfolds it carefully, reads it again, though he knows every word by heart. "Dear Mrs. Castellano, I am writing to tell you about your husband, about how he died, about the choice I made. The official report will say he died heroically in combat. It will say his actions contributed to our victory. It will say he is a hero. All of this is true. But it is not the whole truth. The whole truth is that I had a choice. I could have saved him, or I could have completed the mission. I chose the mission. I told myself it was the right choice, the tactical choice, the military choice. But sitting here tonight, with his blood still on my uniform, I don't know anymore. I don't know if any choice that leaves a good man dead is right. I don't know if any mission is worth your son growing up without a father. I don't know if I will ever know. I am writing this because someone should tell you the truth, but I am not going to send it because the truth won't bring him back. The truth won't make it right. The truth will only make it hurt more. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I couldn't save him. I'm sorry I didn't try. I'm sorry you will never know how much he loved you and your son, how he talked about you every day, how he carried that picture like a talisman, how his last words before he passed out from blood loss were, "Tell them I love them." I told him I would. I lied. I never did. I never will. Because that would mean admitting what I did, what I chose, what I am. I hope someday you can forgive me. I know I never will. Lieutenant William Mitchell. Bull folds the letter again, puts it back in his wallet. 40 years he has carried it. 40 years it has lived in his pocket, against his chest, over his heart, his hair shirt, his penance, his reminder. He thinks about Tommy Castellano, about those eyes, Rico's eyes, about that question. What does that make you? He thinks about Colonel Hartman, about Aberdeen, about why now, after 40 years, after all this time, they need to talk about Rico. He thinks about the Parkinsons, about how his hands shake more each month, about how the doctors say he has years, but the disease says otherwise, about how much time he has left to make things right, if right is even possible. His phone rings. Not a text this time, an actual call. He looks at the screen. General Marcus Webb. The name hits Bull like a fist to the gut. Marcus Webb, Specialist Webb back in '91, Bull's driver. The kid who sat at the front of the tank, who steered them through the desert, who was 19 years old and terrified, incompetent beyond his years, who helped pull Rico Castellano out of the turret, who held pressure on the wounds, who kept saying, "Stay with us, Rico, stay with us," even when they all knew it was too late. Bull hasn't spoken to Webb in 10 years, not since Webb pinned on his first star, became General Webb, rose so high and so fast that Bull, still a captain after all these years, became just a name from the old days, a photograph in the reunion albums, a memory. Bull answers on the fourth ring. His voice is steady. General Webb. Bull, it's Marcus. The voice is older, deeper, carries the weight of rank and responsibility. But underneath, Bull hears the kid, the driver, the boy who cried in his sleeping bag the night they got news that another platoon lost 3 men to an IED, who said, "I'm scared, LT," and Bull said, "Me too, but we don't talk about it." Been a long time, Bull says. Too long. I'm calling about Monday, about Aberdeen, about what Hartman wants to discuss. Bull's grip tightens on the phone. You know about that? I know everything about it, Bull. I'm the one who initiated it. Silence. Bull processes this. Marcus Webb, 2-star general, reaching back into the past, dragging Castellano's ghost into the present. Why, Bull asks. Because it's time, Webb says. Time to tell the truth. Time to stop carrying it alone. Time to let the next generation learn from our mistakes instead of repeating them. There's a next generation that needs to hear about how I let a good man die. There's a next generation that needs to understand command, Webb says. His voice is firm now, the general speaking, not the scared specialist. Real command, not the sanitized version they teach at West Point, not the one where every decision is clear and every outcome is certain and leaders never doubt and men never die for no good reason. Bull says nothing, does not trust his voice. Aberdeen Monday, Webb says, 0800. I'll be there. Hartman will be there. And Bull, bring your sea bag. You're not coming home Monday night. This is going to take longer than a conversation. What is this, Marcus? Redemption, Webb says, or as close as soldiers like us ever get to it. See you Monday, Bull. The line goes dead. Bull sits in his kitchen as the afternoon light slants through the window. Dust motes dance in the beams. The house is silent except for the ticking of the wall clock. Each second falling like a hammer on anvil, each moment bringing Monday closer. He thinks about Rico Castellano, about Tommy Castellano, about Marcus Webb, about Colonel Hartman, about Aberdeen Proving Ground, where the Army tests its weapons, its equipment, its future. He thinks about redemption, about whether such a thing exists for men who made the choices he made. He thinks about his hands, how they shake, how the tremor gets worse under stress, how the doctors say it will progress, how eventually the shaking will spread, how one day he will not be able to hold a phone or write his name or pull a trigger. How much time does he have? How much time to make right what can never be made right? How much time to teach what he learned in blood and fire and the screams of dying men? Bull stands, walks to the bedroom, opens his closet. His dress uniform hangs there, crisp and clean, and weighted with ribbons he never talks about and medals he never wears except for ceremonies. Bronze Star, Purple Heart, 2 of them, Silver Star, that last one he wanted to refuse, tried to refuse. They made him take it, for valor above and beyond, for leadership under fire, for completing the mission even when a man lay dying in his tank. They gave him a medal for choosing wrong. Bull takes the uniform down, lays it on the bed. Next to it he places his garrison cap, his blouse trousers, his spit-shine boots, the ritual of preparation, the old soldier's meditation, making ready for battle, even when the battle is only with yourself. He packs his sea bag, not much, toiletries, extra uniforms, running shoes though he can barely run anymore, though the Parkinson's makes every jog an adventure in controlled falling. He packs anyway. Because you pack running shoes, because that's what soldiers do. At the bottom of his closet, in a wooden box that once held ammunition, Bull keeps his war. Photographs, letters from men who served with him, some dead now, some scattered across the country, living quiet lives and trying to forget. Dog tags, his own and a few others, the ones he collected when their owners no longer needed them. When he wrote the letters home and said, he died bravely, and he didn't suffer, and all the other lies that help the living sleep at night. Rico Castellano's dog tags are not there. Bull gave them to the casualty officer who gave them to the widow, who presumably gave them to her son. But Bull remembers them. The way they sounded, jingling against Rico's neck when he moved. The metallic rhythm of a man at work, at war, at life. Bull closes the box. Does not take it. Some ghosts you cannot pack. Some you must leave behind, some follow anyway. He sleeps badly that night, dreams of fire and sand in the inside of the turret, that cramped space where four men live close enough to smell each other's fear, to hear each other's prayers, to know each other better than family. Dreams of Rico slumped against the breach, blood running from his mouth, his eyes confused and scared and young. So young, 28 years old and dying and asking why, always asking why. Bull wakes at 04:30, the old soldier's automatic alarm clock, the one that never stops ringing no matter how many years you are retired. He showers, shaves carefully, fighting the tremor, nicking himself twice, puts on his uniform. The routine is soothing, familiar, a return to order in a disordered world. By 0600 he is on the road. Aberdeen is 7 hours north. He will arrive early. He always arrives early. Old habit, old discipline, old fear that if he is late, someone will die. The drive up Interstate 75 is hypnotic. Georgia gives way to South Carolina, then North Carolina, then Virginia, then Maryland. The land changes, but the highway stays the same. Endless concrete and white lines and 18-wheelers hauling America's commerce north and south like blood through arteries. Bull stops once for gas and coffee. The tremor makes pouring the coffee difficult. He spills some. The clerk, a kid maybe 20 with tattoos and a vape pen, watches him struggle. Does not offer help. Probably thinks he is drunk. Bull does not explain. What would he say? I'm not drunk. I'm diseased. I'm not weak. I'm dying. I'm not helpless. I'm just running out of time. He pays, drives, drinks the coffee even though it tastes like battery acid. The caffeine helps the shaking, just a little, just enough. Aberdeen Proving Ground sits on the Chesapeake Bay, 75,000 acres of testing, ranges, and laboratories, and history. This is where the Army has tested its weapons since 1918, where they shot the first Tommy guns and the first Browning machine guns and the first Abrams tanks, where they proved that American steel can survive what American soldiers will face. Bull arrives at 0730, early, as always. He checks in at the main gate, shows his ID, gets a visitor pass. The MP, a young corporal with a high and tight haircut and an expression of professional boredom, directs him to Building 427. General Webb is expecting you, sir, the MP says, and Bull hears the respect in the kid's voice, the automatic deference to rank, even when the rank is 40 years faded. Thank you, Corporal, Bull says. He drives through this post. It is enormous, sprawling, a small city dedicated to the science of making better ways to kill people. He passes firing ranges and impact areas and buildings with no windows and warnings about unexploded ordnance. Building 427 is unremarkable. Brick, 3 stories, American flag out front, could be an office building anywhere in America except for the security and the armed guards and the sign that says authorized personnel only. Bull parks, checks his uniform in the rearview mirror, straightens his ribbons. Old vanity, old pride, old need to look squared away even when everything inside is falling apart. He walks to the entrance. Each step is measured. The Parkinson's makes his gait uneven. Not quite a limp, but not quite normal either. People notice. He sees them notice. sees them look away, uncomfortable with evidence of mortality, with proof that even strong men break. Inside, the building is cool and sterile. More guards, more ID checks. Finally, an escort, a female sergeant who introduces herself as Sergeant Rodriguez, who leads him down corridors and upstairs and through secure doors that require key cards and retinal scans. They arrive at a conference room. Plain, table, chairs, coffee pot, American flag in the corner, portrait of the president on the wall, and three men waiting. General Marcus Webb, 2 stars on his shoulders, 53 years old but looks 40, lean and hard and carrying himself with the confidence of someone who has been tested and passed every test. He stands when Bull enters, smiles. The smile is genuine, reaches his eyes, transforms him back into the kid Bull remembers. "Bull," Webb says, and crosses the room with his hand extended. Bull takes it. The handshake is firm. Webb's hand does not shake. Bull's does. "Marcus," Bull says. "I mean, General." "Marcus is fine. We're past all that." "Some habits die hard, sir." Webb laughs. "Yes, they do. And stop sirring me or I'll bust you back down to lieutenant." Colonel James Hartman sits at the table. 67 years old now. White-haired, face like carved granite, eyes that have seen too much and remember all of it. He does not stand, does not smile, just nods. "Bull." "Colonel, it's been a long time." "Yes, sir." "You look old." "So do you, sir." Hartman's lips twitch. Not quite a smile. Fair enough. The third man is a stranger, mid-40s, civilian clothes, wire-rimmed glasses, the soft look of someone who has never been shot at. He stands and offers his hand. "Captain Mitchell, I'm Dr. Sarah Chen, military historian. I'm coordinating the Legacy Project." Bull shakes her hand. Her grip is surprisingly strong. "Ma'am, I'm not sure what I'm doing here." "Sit down, Bull," Webb says. "Coffee?" "Please." They settle around the table. Rodriguez pours coffee. Bull's hands shake as he lifts the cup. He sees them all notice. Says nothing. What is there to say? Webb folds his hands on the table. His expression is serious now, the general returned. "Bull, what I told you on the phone was true. We're here to talk about Sergeant Castellano, about Medina Ridge, about what really happened. But that's not all we're here for." He pauses, looks at Hartman, at Chen, at Bull. "The Army is developing a new combat vehicle," Webb continues. "Next Generation Combat Vehicle, NGCV. It's designed to replace the Abrams. Modern threats, modern technology, lighter, faster, more modular, better." Bull says nothing, waits. "They've been testing it for 2 years," Webb says, "and they can't get it right. The crews can't adapt. They're trained on simulators, on computers, on artificial intelligence that tells them what to do and when to do it. They're skilled, they're smart, but they're not soldiers, not the way we were soldiers." He leans forward. 3 serious accidents in testing," Webb says. 2 crews injured, 1 vehicle totaled. The program is on the edge of cancellation. Hundreds of millions of dollars, the future of American armor. And it's failing because the people designing it and the people testing it have never been in a real fight, never had to make a real choice, never carried a real ghost. Bull understands now, begins to understand. "You want experience. We want you," Webb says flatly. "You and others like you. Tank commanders who served in real combat, who know what it means to make decisions when there are no good options, who understand that command isn't about following the computer, it's about leading men." "I'm 62 years old," Bull says. "I have Parkinson's. I can barely hold a cup of coffee. You want me to command a tank?" "Yes," Webb says simply. "That's insane. That's necessary." Bull looks at Hartman. "Colonel, you agree with this?" Hartman is quiet for a long moment. When he speaks, his voice is rough, like gravel in a mixer. 40 years ago, we made a choice. You and I, we wrote a report that protected your career and honored Rico's memory and kept the mission clean. We did what we thought was right, what we knew was necessary." He pauses. His eyes are cold, flat, the eyes of a man who has made hard choices and learned to live with them. "But it was still a lie," Hartman says. "A good lie, a useful lie, but a lie. And for 40 years, we've trained young officers on that lie. We've taught them that command means making the tactical choice. That mission comes first. That good men sometimes die and you salute and move on." He leans forward. "And we were wrong, Bull. Not about the choice, Maybe you were right to finish the fight. Maybe you weren't. I still don't know. But we were wrong to hide it, wrong to make it clean, wrong to let an entire generation of officers think that command is about calculations and outcomes and after-action reports. His voice drops. Command is about carrying the weight, about living with the choices, about understanding that every decision has a cost and someone has to pay it, and usually it's not you. That's what we didn't teach. That's what they need to learn. Bull's coffee has gone cold. He sets it down carefully. And Rico? You want me to talk about Rico? I want you to teach about Rico, Hartman says. I want these kids to know that their commander 40 years ago made a choice that haunts him still. That he carries dog tags in a box and a letter in his wallet and guilt in his bones. That he's still serving anyway, still trying, still refusing to quit. He stands, walks to the window, looks out at the proving ground, at the ranges where they test steel and fire, and the limits of human endurance. You ask Tommy Castellano what you are, Hartman says without turning around. Hero who let his grandfather die? I'll tell you what you are. You're a teacher, and this is your last mission. Teach them what we learned. Teach them what command costs. Teach them that steel is nothing without the souls inside it. The room is silent. Bull looks at Webb. You said I'd need my sea bag. How long? 2 months, Webb says. Maybe 3. Testing cycle, training pipeline. You'll have a crew, young soldiers, smart but green. Your job is to make them understand. Understand what? That technology doesn't win wars, Webb says. People do. And people break and bleed and carry ghosts and serve anyway. That's the lesson. Bull thinks about Tommy Castellano, about those accusing eyes, about the question he couldn't answer. He thinks about the tremor in his hands, about how much time he has left, about redemption, if such a thing exists. He thinks about Rico, always Rico, the ghost in the passenger seat, the blood on the uniform, the last words that Bull never delivered. Tell them I love them. Maybe this is how. Maybe this is the message. Not the words themselves, but the lesson, the weight, the cost, the choice. Bull stands. His legs are steady despite the disease, despite everything. When do we start? Webb smiles. It is not a happy smile. It is the smile of men who know they are heading back to war, even if the war is only with themselves. Tomorrow morning, 0600, I'll introduce you to your crew. Who are they? Webb's smile widens. You'll see, one of them you know. Or you should. Bull understands, knows before Webb says it, feels the universe click into place like a round chambering. Tommy Castellano. He enlisted 6 months ago, requested armor, requested gunner training. When I saw the name, I pulled his file. He's good, Bull, natural talent, his grandfather's genes. And he specifically requested to be assigned to this program when he heard veterans were being brought in. He wants answers, Bull says. He wants to understand, Webb corrects. There's a difference, and you're going to help him. Bull nods slowly, feels the weight settling onto his shoulders, familiar and terrible, and somehow right. This is penance. This is service. This is the last command. All right, he says, let's teach them about ghosts. Outside, the sun climbs higher over Aberdeen proving ground. Somewhere on the ranges, weapons are being tested, armor is being proved, the future is being forged in fire and steel. Inside Building 427, Captain William Bull Mitchell stands at attention, 62 years old, hands shaking with disease, heart heavy with 40 years of guilt, and prepares for his final mission. The war is not over. The war is never over. Not for men like him, not for souls wrapped in steel. But maybe, just maybe, he can teach the next generation how to carry the weight, how to make the choices, how to live with the ghosts, how to serve even when the steel starts to bend, even when the souls inside start to break, even when redemption is impossible and forgiveness is a dream and the only thing left is duty. That is enough. It has to be enough. It is all he has. Bull looks at Webb, at Hartman, at Chen. What's the vehicle called? XM-30 Sentinel, Webb says almost. Hybrid track and wheel design, 650 horsepower. Modular armor, AI-assisted targeting, the future of American armor. Does it work? The technology works fine, Webb says. It's the people we can't figure out. That's why we need you. Bull nods, thinks about the M1A1 in the museum, about Alpha 26, about the blood on the floor and the smell of cordite and the sound of Rico's voice saying, tell them I love them. Then let's teach them, Bull says. Let's teach them that steel doesn't fight wars. People do. and people carry ghosts, and ghosts make us remember, and remembering makes us better. He picks up his coffee cup with shaking hands, raises it like a toast to the next generation. May they learn from our mistakes. May they be better than we were. Webb raises his cup. Hartman raises his. Chen raises hers. To the next generation, Webb says, and to the ghosts who teach them. They drink. The coffee is cold and bitter. Just like war. Just like memory. Just like the truth that hides inside every after-action report. Every medal citation. Every story told by old men to young soldiers who think they understand but cannot. Not yet. Not until they have their own ghosts, their own weight, their own choices that haunt them at 3 a.m. when sleep will not come and the past will not stay past. Bull sets down his cup, his hands still shake. They will always shake now, but his eyes are clear, his spine is straight, his purpose is renewed. One last mission, one last chance, one last command. For Rico, for Tommy, for all the young soldiers who will sit in steel and face fire and make choices they will carry forever. Bull is ready, the ghosts are ready, the steel is waiting. Tomorrow the teaching begins. Tomorrow the next generation learns. Tomorrow Bull Mitchell returns to war one final time, not to fight the enemy, but to fight the lie, to tell the truth, to show that heroes are not men who never fail, but men who fail and serve anyway, who break and bend but never quit, who carry the weight until they cannot carry anymore, and then carry a little further because that is what soldiers do. That is what leaders do. That is what command means. Not tactics, not technology, not victory at any cost, but service, sacrifice, bearing witness, passing the torch even when your hands shake too much to hold it steady. Someone else will have to carry it from here. But first Bull will light it, will show them the flame, will teach them that fire burns but also illuminates, that pain teaches what comfort never can, that ghosts are not the enemy, but the guides who lead us through the darkness. If we listen, if we learn, if we refuse to forget. Bull Mitchell will not forget, will never forget, cannot forget even if he wanted to. Rico Castellano rides with him always. We'll ride with him tomorrow when he climbs into the XM-30 Sentinel. We'll ride with him when he teaches Tommy what command means. We'll ride with him until the day Bull's hands stop shaking because his heart stops beating, because his time runs out. But that day is not today. Today Bull serves, today Bull teaches, today Bull returns to the steel and the fire and the purpose that has defined him for 40 years. One last command, one last mission, one last chance to make it right. Not to erase the past, but to honor it, to learn from it, to pass it forward so the next generation does not repeat the mistakes, but learns from them, grows from them, becomes better because of them. That is redemption. That is service. That is enough. It has to be enough. It is all any of us get. Bull stands, gathers his things, prepares to meet his crew, his last crew, his final command. Tomorrow they will climb into steel together. Tomorrow they will learn what it means to be soldiers. Tomorrow the teaching begins. Today is for preparation, for gathering strength, for making peace with the ghosts who will ride along. Thank you, Bull says to Webb, to Hartman, to Chen, for giving me this chance, for letting me serve one more time, for remembering that old soldiers still have something to teach. No, Webb says quietly. Thank you for never giving up, for carrying the weight all these years, for being willing to share it now so others can learn to carry theirs. They shake hands. Bull leaves the room, walks down the corridor, steps out into the Maryland sun. The air smells like cut grass and gunpowder and possibility. Tomorrow the war begins again. The war against forgetting. The war against easy answers. The war against the lie that command is simple and choices are clear, and good men do not die for complicated reasons. Bull climbs into his truck, sits for a moment with his hands on the wheel. They shake. They will always shake. But they can still drive, can still serve, can still teach. That is enough. It has to be enough. It is all he has left to give. He starts the engine, pulls out of the parking lot, drives toward the billeting office where he will check in, where he will sleep tonight in a strange bed in a strange room, where he will dream of fire and sand and ghosts. But tomorrow he will wake at 04:30. Tomorrow he will put on his uniform. Tomorrow he will meet Tommy Castellano and the others. Tomorrow he will climb into the XM-30 Sentinel and begin to teach the lesson he learned 40 years ago in the desert, when a good man died and Bull Mitchell had to live with that choice every day since. Tomorrow the last command begins. Today is just preparation, just the gathering of ghosts, just the final breath before diving back into the deep water, where only truth lives and lies drowned, and the only thing that matters is service and sacrifice and the refusal to quit, no matter how much it hurts. Bull drives into the afternoon. The road stretches ahead. Behind him, the proving ground recedes. Tomorrow it will loom again. Tomorrow the steel will call. Tomorrow the teaching begins. The learning started 40 years ago. In the desert, in the fire, in the moment when a young lieutenant made a choice that would define him forever. Now Captain Bull Mitchell will teach that choice to others. We'll show them the weight. We'll help them understand. We'll pass the torch even as his hands shake, even as his body fails, even as time runs out. Because that is what soldiers do. They serve, they teach, they carry the ghosts. They refuse to quit. They bend but do not break. And they never ever forget. Bull will not allow forgetting, cannot allow it. Will fight it with his last breath. Will teach against it with his final words. Tomorrow he will meet Tommy Castellano. Tomorrow they will climb into steel together. Tomorrow the grandson will learn what the grandfather's death meant. Tomorrow the last command begins. And it is enough. Dawn comes to Aberdeen Proving Ground the way it comes to all military installations. Not gently, not with grace, but with the harsh certainty of a drill sergeant's voice, with the mechanical precision of duty that does not care if you are ready, does not ask if you have slept, does not wait for you to make peace with your ghosts. Bull Mitchell wakes at 04:30 in the visiting officer's quarters. The room is generic, impersonal, identical to 1,000 other rooms in 1,000 other bases across the world. Narrow bed with tight corners and a thin mattress, metal locker, desk with a lamp, window overlooking the parade ground, the smell of industrial cleaner and old paint, and the accumulated sadness of temporary lives lived in temporary spaces. He lies still for a moment, listening to his body inventory its failures. The tremor in his hands, present even at rest now. The stiffness in his back, legacy of too many years in cramped spaces, too many hours hunched in turrets. The phantom ache in his left knee where shrapnel found him in Fallujah. Nothing serious, barely worth a Purple Heart, but enough to remind him every morning that steel is not the only thing that carries scars. Bull swings his legs out of bed, plants his feet on the cold linoleum, counts to 3, stands. The first few steps are always the hardest. The Parkinson's makes his balance uncertain, makes the simple act of walking require concentration, intention, will. He crosses to the bathroom, turns on the light, looks at himself in the mirror. 62 years old. White hair, weathered face, eyes that have seen too much but still see clearly, still see purpose. He thinks about Tommy Castellano, about meeting him today, about looking into eyes that are Rico's eyes, about facing questions that have no good answers, only true ones. Bull showers. The hot water helps loosen the stiffness. He stands under the stream longer than necessary, letting it pound against his shoulders, remembering other showers in other places. Field showers in the desert, cold water from a bag hanging in the sun. Decontamination showers and after they thought there might be chemical weapons. The shower in his apartment the day he came home from his last deployment, standing under the water for an hour, trying to wash away the sand and the smoke and the memories that no amount of soap could touch. He dries off, shaves carefully. His hands shake, but he has learned to compensate, to time the strokes between tremors, to use the mirror as a guide. He nicks himself once, a small cut on his jaw. The blood wells up bright red. He presses tissue against it, watches the white paper turn pink, then crimson. Thinks about other blood, Rico's blood, the blood that soaked into his uniform, that he scrubbed out in a sink 40 years ago, that never really came out no matter how many times he washed, no matter how many years passed. Bull puts on his uniform. Not dress uniform today. Battle dress, camouflage and boots, and the weight of rank on his collar. He moves through the routine with the precision of 40 years' practice, each button in its hole, each crease aligned, the ritual of preparation, the armor of cloth before the armor of steel. By 0530, he is ready. By 0545, he is walking across the parade ground toward the dining facility. The morning air is cool, carrying the salt smell of the Chesapeake Bay mixed with the petroleum scent of diesel fuel and the green smell of cut grass. Other soldiers move through the dawn, shadows becoming solid as the light grows. Young men and women mostly. Kids, really. The same age Bull was when he first put on the uniform. The same age Rico was when he died. Bull eats breakfast alone, scrambled eggs and toast and coffee, black and strong. The tremor makes eating difficult. He spills some egg, drops his fork twice. The young soldiers at nearby tables notice but pretend not to. Bull is grateful for their courtesy, does not need pity, does not want sympathy, only wants to eat his breakfast and drink his coffee and prepare for what comes next. At 0600, he reports to Building 427, the same building as yesterday, the same guards, the same corridors. But today feels different. Today is not briefing. Today is beginning. General Webb is waiting in the conference room, along with Sergeant Rodriguez from yesterday. Webb looks tired, like he slept badly or did not sleep at all. Bull understands. The night before action is always the longest night. The night when doubt creeps in, when plans seem fragile, when the weight of responsibility feels heaviest. Bull, Webb says, ready to meet your crew? As ready as I'll ever be, sir. Webb smiles slightly. They're waiting in the simulator building. I should warn you, they're young, they're smart, and they're skeptical. They've heard we're bringing in old-timers to teach them. Some of them think it's a waste of time. Only some? One of them asked if we were opening a museum exhibit. Bull laughs, a short bark of sound. Fair enough. What do they know about me? That you're a retired captain. That you commanded armor in Desert Storm and Iraq and Afghanistan. That you're here to train them on the XM30. That's all. They don't know about Rico. Webb shakes his head. That's your story to tell. When you're ready. If you're ready. Bull nods, takes a breath. Let's go meet them. They walk across the proving ground. The morning is brightening now, the sun clearing the trees, burning off the mist that rises from the bay. The simulator building is low and wide, all concrete and small windows. The kind of structure designed for function, not beauty. Inside it smells like electronics and air conditioning, and the peculiar sterile scent of spaces where people train for war, but war never actually comes. The simulator room is enormous. Banks of computers line the walls. Screens show terrain maps and thermal images and targeting reticules. In the center of the room sits a mock-up of the XM30 turret, full scale, complete with crew positions and controls, and the cramped intimacy that comes from putting 4 people in a space designed for efficiency, not comfort. 3 soldiers stand beside the simulator. They come to attention when Webb and Bull enter. Not quite stiff, not quite relaxed. The posture of soldiers who are still learning where military discipline ends and military bearing begins. Webb makes introductions. Captain Mitchell, meet your crew. Sergeant First Class Tommy Castellano, gunner. Tommy Castellano is 20 years old but looks older. Combat does that sometimes. So does loss. He is lean and hard, with dark hair cut high and tight, dark eyes that miss nothing, a jaw that could cut glass. He wears his uniform like he was born in it, like the cloth and the man are one thing, not two. He does not smile, does not offer his hand, just nods once, sharp, the nod of someone who is present but not convinced. Sir, Tommy says, his voice is flat, neutral, giving nothing away. Bull studies him, sees Rico in the shape of the face, in the set of the shoulders, in the way he stands with his weight forward like a boxer ready to move. But the eyes are different. Rico's eyes were warm, quick to laugh, full of life. Tommy's eyes are cold, guarded, full of questions and anger, and something else Bull recognizes because he sees it in his own mirror every morning. Grief. Sergeant Castellano, Bull says, good to meet you properly. Is it? Tommy asks. The challenge is subtle but present. We'll find out, Bull replies. Webb continues. Specialist Jessica Rodriguez, driver. Jessica Rodriguez is 24 years old and looks like she could run through a brick wall without noticing. 5'6", maybe 130 pounds, but every ounce of it is muscle and will. Her hair is pulled back in a tight bun. Her face is sharp, intelligent, skeptical. She has the build and bearing of an athlete, someone who has spent her life proving she belongs in spaces that men assume are theirs. Sir, she says. Her voice is crisp, professional, but Bull hears the edge underneath. This is someone who has had to fight for respect, who has earned it inch by bloody inch, who does not suffer fools and does not trust easily. Specialist Rodriguez, what did you do before armor? Drone operator, sir, 2 years. Remote piloting, surveillance, target acquisition. Why the switch? Wanted to be closer to the fight, sir. Bull nods, respects that. You'll get your wish. Private First Class Michael Park, loader. Michael Park is 22 years old and looks younger. Baby face, wire-rimmed glasses. The soft awkwardness of someone who grew up more comfortable with books than barbells, with computers than combat. But there is something in his eyes, something familiar, something that makes Bull's chest tighten. Park, Bull says slowly. Any relation to David Park? Michael's face transforms. The awkwardness vanishes. His spine straightens. Pride fills his voice. Yes, sir. Specialist David Park, sir. He served with you in Desert Storm. He was your loader. He's my father. Bull feels the past reach up and grab him by the throat. David Park, 19 years old and 91. Scared kid from California who could load a main gun faster than anyone Bull ever saw. Who sang off-key to pass the time. Who wrote letters home every day. Who survived the war and went home and built a life and raised a son. How is your father, Private? He's good, sir. He's a teacher now. High school history. He talks about you sometimes. Says you taught him what leadership means. Bull's hands shake worse suddenly. He clasps them behind his back. Your father was a good soldier. I'm glad he made it home. Glad he's teaching. We need good teachers. He said to tell you something, sir, if I met you. What's that? He said to tell you that Rico would be proud, that you did what you had to do, that he understands now, after all these years. He said you taught him that command means carrying the weight, and he's tried to teach his students the same thing. The room is silent. Tommy's eyes narrow. Jessica looks confused. Webb watches carefully. Bull swallows hard. Tell your father thank you. Tell him that means more than he knows. Webb clears his throat. All right, that's the crew. Bull, they're yours. You've got 2 weeks of simulator training, then 2 weeks of live vehicle training, then final evaluations. Your job is to get them ready, to teach them what the computer can't, to make them understand what command really means. He turns to the crew. Captain Mitchell is here because he has forgotten more about armor warfare than you three have learned. He has commanded in actual combat, made actual life and death decisions, carried actual consequences. You will listen to him. You will learn from him. You will show him the respect his service has earned. Is that clear? Yes, sir, the 3 soldiers chorus. Webb nods. Good. Bull, they're all yours. He leaves, his footsteps echoing in the big room. Bull looks at his crew, his last crew. 3 young soldiers who do not know him, do not trust him, do not understand yet what he has to teach. He thinks about how to begin. Thinks about all the training cycles he has been through, all the young soldiers he has taught, all the ways to break the ice and build the team and create the bond that makes 4 people into one organism inside steel. But this is different. This crew is different because Tommy Castellano is here, because Michael Park is here, because ghosts are here, standing in the room, invisible but present, waiting to be acknowledged. Bull decides, truth first, always truth first. Sit down, he says. They sit, Tommy and Jessica on one side of the simulator, Michael on the other. Bull remains standing, his hands still clasped behind his back to hide the shaking. You've been told I'm here to train you, Bull says. That's true, but it's not the whole truth. The whole truth is I'm here to teach you something the Army doesn't know how to teach anymore. Something that got lost somewhere between Desert Storm and now. Something that matters more than all the technology and tactics and training manuals combined. He pauses, looks at each of them in turn. I'm here to teach you about ghosts, Bull says. About the weight you carry when you command. About the choices you make that you live with forever. About what it means to put on steel and go into fire with people whose lives depend on you. Jessica shifts uncomfortably. Sir, with respect, we know about the weight of command. We've trained for this. We understand the stakes. Do you, Bull asks, not challenging, genuinely asking. Have you ever made a choice where someone died because of your decision? Have you ever looked at a man's face and known you could save him, but it would cost the mission? Have you ever written a letter to a widow explaining why her husband is dead? Silence. I have, Bull says quietly. 40 years ago, February 27th, 1991, I commanded a tank in Desert Storm, four-man crew. We hit an enemy position, got into a firefight, won the fight, lost a man anyway. He looks directly at Tommy. Sergeant Rico Castellano, my gunner, your grandfather. Tommy's face goes very still, ice forming over deep water. He got hurt in the fight, Bull continues. Not bad at first, broken ribs, internal bleeding, but we were still engaged, still in contact with the enemy. I had a choice, stop and render aid, call for medevac, save my gunner, or keep fighting, keep the pressure on, complete the mission, protect the battalion. Bull's voice is steady, but his hands shake worse now. He brings them in front of him, lets the crew see the tremor, lets them see the quotidien. I chose the mission, Bull says. I chose to keep fighting. By the time we got Rico out and onto a helicopter, he had been bleeding internally for 23 minutes. He died before he reached the field hospital. The silence is absolute now. Even the hum of the computer seems muted. I made the right tactical decision, Bull says. I made the decision my training said to make. The decision that saved lives, the decision that completed the mission. And for 40 years I have lived with that decision, carried it, been haunted by it. He looks at Tommy. Your grandfather's last words were, tell them I love them. He meant your grandmother. He meant you. He meant the son he would never see grow up. And I never told them. I wrote a letter. I carried it for 40 years, but I never sent it, because sending it would mean admitting what I did, what I chose, what I am. Tommy's face is carved from stone, but his eyes are fire. Why are you telling us this, he asks. His voice is controlled, but barely. Rage simmers underneath. Because you need to know, Bull says, because the Army will teach you tactics and technology and how to operate this machine. But no one will teach you about the Qanon, about what it means to command, about the weight you carry after the fight is over and the smoke clears and you count the dead. He turns to Jessica. You were a drone operator. You killed people from thousands of miles away. Push a button, fire a missile, watch the thermal bloom on a screen. Did you ever see the faces? Did you ever have to look at the people you killed? Jessica's jaw tightens. No, sir. Do you think that matters? Do you think distance makes it easier? Do you think the weight is less because you weren't there? She says nothing, but something shifts in her eyes, something that says maybe she has thought about this. Maybe she has her own ghosts. Bull turns to Michael. Your father served with me. He was there when Rico died. He helped pull him out of the turret. He held pressure on the wounds. He tried to save him. Your father carried that too. Maybe he never told you. Maybe he didn't want you to know. But he knows what I'm talking about. He knows about ghosts. Michael's face is pale. He never talked about that day. Just said he served with you. Said you were a good officer. Said I'd learn a lot. Your father is a better man than I am, Bull says. He forgave me. I haven't earned forgiveness. Haven't earned peace. But maybe I can earn something else. Maybe I can teach you three to be better than I was. To make better choices. To carry the weight better. He moves to the simulator, places his hand on the commander's position. The metal is cool under his palm. This machine is amazing, Bull says. State-of-the-art. AI-assisted targeting, modular armor, hybrid propulsion. Better than anything I ever commanded. But you know what? Technology doesn't win wars. Steel doesn't win wars. Firepower doesn't win wars. He looks at them. People win wars. 4 souls wrapped in metal and sent into hell. 4 people who trust each other, who know each other, who would die for each other. That's what wins, not the machine. The team inside it. Bull pulls his hand back. The tremor is worse now, visible to everyone. I have Parkinson's disease, he says. My hands shake. My balance is bad. I'm 62 years old and my body is failing. By every regulation, I should not be here. Should not be training, should not be commanding. He holds up his shaking hands. But General Webb brought me here anyway. You know why? Because experience matters. Because wisdom matters. Because someone needs to teach you what war really is. Not the sanitized version. Not the video game version. The real version. The version where good men die and you live with that forever. Tommy stands abruptly. His chair scrapes back. His hands are fists. My grandfather died because you chose wrong, he says. Each word is a knife. You say you made the right tactical decision. That's what the report says. That's what my grandmother was told. That Rico died heroically, that his death had meaning. But you just told us the truth. You could have saved him. You chose not to. You chose the mission over his life. Yes, Bull says simply. Does not flinch. Does not look away. I did. Then why should I listen to you? Why should I learn from you? You're not a teacher. You're a coward who let my grandfather bleed out so you could get a medal. The words hang in the air like smoke from a battlefield. Jessica looks shocked. Michael looks torn between loyalty to Bull and sympathy for Tommy. Bull does not move, does not raise his voice, just looks at Tommy with eyes that have seen too much and still see clearly. You're right, Bull says, about some of it. I did choose the mission. I did let Rico die. Those are facts. But the coward part, the medal part, you are wrong about that. He steps closer to Tommy, not aggressive, not threatening, just closing the distance so the truth has less space to travel. I didn't want the medal, Bull says, tried to refuse it. They made me take it, pinned it on my chest and told me I was a hero, and I stood there thinking about Rico bleeding in the turret and wanted to vomit. I've never worn that medal except when forced to. Never talk about it, never use it, because it's not a medal, it's a gravestone. Tommy's fists do not unclench, but something flickers in his eyes. And coward, Bull continues. Maybe choosing the mission was cowardice. Maybe the brave thing would have been to stop the fight, save the man. Damn the consequences. I've thought about that every day for 40 years. Don't have an answer. Don't know if there is an answer. He takes a breath. But I'll tell you what I do know. I know that if I had stopped, if I had called off the fight to save Rico, other men might have died. The enemy we were engaging was covering a retreat. They were protecting Iraqi forces that would have hit our battalion later. If we had let them go, if we had broken contact, more Americans might have died. Maybe 10, maybe 50. I don't know, can't know. But that's the weight, Tommy. That's what command means. You don't choose between good and bad. You choose between bad and worse, and then you live with it. Tommy's voice is quieter now, but still edged with pain. He had a son, my father, 3 weeks old. Rico never even met him, never held him, never saw him grow up, because you chose numbers over people. I chose many over one, Bull says, and your grandfather paid the price. And your father paid the price, and you're paying the price right now, and I've been paying it for 40 years. That's command. That's leadership. That's what I'm here to teach you, not tactics, not technology, the weight, the ghost you carry forever. Silence falls, not comfortable, not resolved, but different than before, heavier, more honest. Jessica speaks, her voice careful. Sir, why are you telling us this on day one? Why not wait? Build trust first? Because trust built on lies isn't trust, Bull says. And because you need to know what you're training for. This isn't a simulator. This isn't a game. This is preparation for making choices that will haunt you. Preparation for carrying weight that will never get lighter. If you can't handle that, if you can't accept that, then you need to leave now before you climb into that steel, before someone's life depends on you. He looks at each of them. I'm not here to make you comfortable. I'm not here to make you feel good. I'm here to make you ready. Ready for the reality that no amount of training can fully prepare you for. Ready to make choices, ready to carry the weight, ready to lead even when leadership means living with consequences that will eat at you forever. Bull moves to the simulator, sits in the commander's position. The seat creaks under his weight. His hands rest on the controls. They shake. They will always shake, but they can still operate, can still teach. Get in, he says. Tommy, gunner position. Jessica, driver. Michael, loader. Let's start learning. Not how to operate the machine. You already know that. Let's learn how to be a crew, how to trust each other, how to become one organism instead of 4 individuals. Because when the shooting starts, when the choices come, you won't have time to think. You'll only have each other. There is hesitation. Tommy stands frozen, fists still clenched. Jessica looks uncertain. Michael glances between them, waiting for someone to make the first move. Then Michael steps forward, climbs into the loader position. My dad said you taught him courage isn't not being afraid. It's being afraid and serving anyway. I'm afraid right now, sir. Afraid of what you just said. Afraid of the weight. But I'm here anyway. Jessica moves next, slides into the driver position. I killed people from 1,000 miles away, she says quietly. Never saw their faces, never knew their names, but I knew they were people, had families, maybe had kids. I told myself it didn't matter because it was war, because they were the enemy, because distance made it different. But you're right. The weight is the same. Maybe I need to learn how to carry it properly instead of pretending it's not there. Tommy does not move. Stands beside the simulator, looking at his grandfather's killer, at the man who chose wrong and right simultaneously, at the weight made flesh. Bull meets his eyes, does not plead, does not order, just waits. I hate you, Tommy says finally, for what you did, for what you took from my family, for the hole in my father's life. I hate you. I know, Bull says. I hate myself too, most days. But my father doesn't hate you. My grandmother doesn't hate you. They said Rico wouldn't want hate, wouldn't want blame, would want us to learn, to be better, to understand. Tommy's fists slowly unclench. I don't forgive you. Can't forgive you. Maybe won't ever forgive you. I'm not asking for forgiveness, Bull says. Then what are you asking for? Nothing. I'm offering. Offering to teach you what I learned, what Rico's death taught me. So maybe his sacrifice means something. Maybe his grandson can be better than I was, can make better choices, can carry the weight better. Tommy stands there for a long moment. The war plays out across his face, anger and grief and curiosity and something else. Something that might be the beginning of understanding. Then he moves, climbs into the gunner position, settles into the seat, places his hands on the controls. Let's start, Tommy says, but understand something, sir. I'm here because my grandfather was a soldier. Because service matters, because I want to understand what happened that day. Not to forgive, not to forget, to understand. That's enough, Bull says. Understanding is enough. They begin. Bull talks them through the positions. The layout of the XM30 is similar to the Abrams, but different in crucial ways. More automated, more computerized. The AI assists with targeting, with navigation, with threat assessment. The crew members have less to do manually and more to do mentally. Less physical, more cerebral. This is the problem, Bull says after an hour of familiarization. The computer does so much that you start trusting it more than yourselves. Start deferring to it. Start thinking the machine knows best. He taps the screen showing the AI interface. This system is smart, brilliant even. Processes information faster than any human. Calculates probabilities. Suggests optimal tactics. But you know what it can't do? Feel, Michael guesses. Close. It can't doubt, can't question, can't look at a situation and think something's wrong, even when all the data says everything's right. Instinct, intuition, the ghost in your gut that whispers warnings. The machine doesn't have that, only you do. Bull pulls up a scenario. Desert terrain, rolling sand dunes, scattered vegetation. They are conducting a patrol. The AI suggests a route through a valley, optimal for speed and fuel efficiency. Jessica, what do you see? Bull asks. She studies the screen. Route looks good, sir. Clear terrain, good sight lines. AI says it's optimal. Tommy? Same, direct path, minimal exposure, no threats detected. Michael? Seems fine, sir. Efficient route. Bull nods. Good, you're all reading the data correctly. The machine is giving you good information. Now, what does your gut say? Silence. Look again, Bull says, not at the screens, at the terrain, the valley, the vegetation, the lack of civilian traffic, even though this is supposedly a trade route. What does it feel like? Jessica frowns, studies the image more carefully. It's quiet. Yes? Too quiet? Tommy offers. Why too quiet? Bull presses. Give me facts, not feelings. No people, Tommy says slowly. Trade route but no vehicles. Vegetation but no animals visible. It's like the area is avoiding this valley. And why would an area be avoided? Bull asks. Understanding dawns on Michael's face. Mines, IEDs, ambush points. The locals know. That's why they don't use it even though it's optimal. Exactly, Bull says. The computer looks at physical terrain, optimal angles, efficient roads, but it doesn't see the invisible terrain, the pattern of life, the negative space where people should be, but aren't. That's what experience teaches. what years and country teaches, what surviving teaches. He changes the route on the screen, taking the longer path along the ridgeline. This route takes 40 minutes longer, uses more fuel, exposes us to potential sniper positions. The AI hates it, keeps suggesting we optimize. But this is the route that gets you home alive. They run more scenarios, urban environments, open desert, mountain passes. Each time Bull forces them to look beyond the data, to question the AI, to trust their instincts even when the computer says they are wrong. After 3 hours, they break for lunch. The crew climbs out of the simulator, stretching, processing. Bull stays in the commander position. His hands hurt from gripping the controls, from fighting the tremor. His back aches from sitting. He is too old for this, too broken, but he is here anyway. Tommy approaches while the others head to the break room. Sir, question. Go ahead. That Valley scenario, the one with the suspected IEDs, did that happen to you? Bull is quiet for a moment, then nods. Mosul, 2007. The AI was newer then, not as sophisticated as what we have now, but it suggested a route through a market district. Optimal, according to the data. I had a bad feeling, couldn't explain it. Just wrong, took a different route, longer, more exposed. He pauses. Later we found out that market had 3 IEDs planted along our planned route. Remote detonated, waiting for us. If we had followed the computer, my entire crew would have been killed. How did you know? I didn't know. I felt the wrongness, the absence of normalcy. Learned to trust that feeling because it had saved me before. Tommy nods slowly. My grandfather, that day, did you have a feeling that something was wrong? Bull looks at him, sees the need for answers, the need to understand. Yes, I felt something. Felt like the enemy was using the ridge as more than just a defensive position. Felt like if we let them retreat, they would regroup and hit us harder later. That's why I pushed, why I kept fighting, why I didn't stop to help Rico. Were you right? Did they regroup? We killed them before they could. So I'll never know. Maybe they would have. Maybe they wouldn't have. Maybe I was right. Maybe I was wrong. That's the weight, Tommy. You make the choice based on instinct and experience and your best judgment, but you never know for certain. You just live with it. Tommy is silent for a long time. Then he says, I still hate what you did. Good. Hold on to that. Let it make you better. Let it teach you to question, to doubt, to think twice before you choose. But don't let it paralyze you. Because when the moment comes, you have to choose. Can't freeze. Can't refuse. Have to decide and live with it. How do you live with it? Bull looks at his shaking hands. You carry it. Every day, every night. You carry it until you can pass it forward. Until you can teach someone else. Until maybe, if you're lucky, the weight becomes bearable because it means something. Because it taught something. Because someone learned from it. Tommy nods once, turns to go, then stops. Sir, thank you for telling the truth, for not lying about my grandfather. That matters. He leaves. Bull sits alone in the simulator. Thinks about truth and lies in the space between. Thinks about weight and teaching and whether redemption is possible. His phone buzzes. Text from Webb. How's it going? Bull types slowly, fighting the tremor. They're learning, so am I. The afternoon continues. More scenarios, more lessons. Bull teaches them about crew coordination, about how the commander is not just giving orders but orchestrating a symphony, how the gunner needs to anticipate, how the driver needs to feel the terrain through the steel, how the loader needs to think 3 shots ahead. He teaches them about communication, how in combat words are too slow, how a good crew develops their own language, grunts and gestures, and the telepathy that comes from knowing each other so well that you can predict what they need before they ask. He teaches them about fear, how everyone is afraid, how the brave ones serve anyway, how courage is not the absence of fear, but the choice to act despite it. By the end of the day, they are exhausted, not physically, mentally, emotionally. Bull has cracked them open, shown them the reality beneath the training, the weight beneath the glory. As they prepare to leave, Bull calls them back. Tomorrow we start building crew integrity. Tonight I want you to think about something. Think about why you're here, why you chose armor, why you want to serve. Not the reasons you tell recruiters or family, the real reasons, the true reasons. Because when things get hard, when choices get impossible, those reasons are what will sustain you. They leave. Bull remains, sits in the commander position as the light fades, thinks about Rico, about Tommy, about all the young soldiers who will climb into steel and face fire and make choices they will carry forever. His phone buzzes again. This time it is not Webb. It is a number he does not recognize. A message with no text, just a photograph. Bull opens it. His breath catches. The photograph is old, faded, cracked along the fold lines. It shows a young man in desert camouflage, Sergeant Rico Castellano, 28 years old, smiling at the camera, holding a photograph of a baby, his son, Tommy's father. Below the image, a text appears. My grandmother wanted you to have this. She said you carried enough guilt. Said it's time to carry memory instead, Tommy. Bull stares at the photograph, at Rico's smile, at the baby who would grow up without a father, at the past made present. He saves the image, sets it as his lock screen. So every time he looks at his phone, he will see Rico, not as a ghost, not as guilt, but as memory, as purpose, as the reason to teach, to serve, to pass forward the lessons learned in blood and fire. Bull stands. His body protests. The Parkinson's makes his movements uncertain. But he stands anyway, walks out of the simulator building, crosses the proving ground as night falls. Tomorrow they will train again. We'll build the crew. We'll prepare for the moment when simulation becomes reality. But tonight Bull has received a gift. Not forgiveness, not absolution, but something more important. Recognition, acknowledgement. The understanding that weight can be carried, that ghosts can teach, that the past can inform the future. Bull walks through the darkness toward the visiting officer's quarters. Above him, the stars wheel overhead, the same stars that shone on the desert 40 years ago, the same stars that will shine on battlefields yet to come. He thinks about Tommy, about how the boy is so much like his grandfather, fierce, dedicated, brave. He thinks about Jessica, about how she carries her own ghost from the drone missions, about how distance does not diminish weight. He thinks about Michael, about David Park, about how some soldiers come home and build lives and raise sons who choose to serve. He thinks about his crew, his last crew, his final chance to teach what war really means. Tomorrow the real work begins. Tomorrow they become not four individuals, but one organism. Tomorrow they learn that steel is only as strong as the souls inside it. But tonight Bull sleeps, and for the first time in 40 years, when Rico Castellano appears in his dreams, the ghost is not accusing, is not angry, is simply present, bearing witness, teaching still, reminding Bull that the weight never goes away, but it can be shared, can be passed forward, can be transformed from burden into purpose. And in the morning, Bull will wake at 04:30, will fight his body to stand, will put on his uniform and prepare to teach, because that is what soldiers do. That is what leaders do. That is what men like Bull Mitchell do. They serve, they carry, they teach, they refuse to quit. Even when their hands shake, even when their bodies fail, even when the weight threatens to crush them, they serve anyway. Because someone has to, because the next generation needs teachers, because ghosts demand that their sacrifice means something. Bull Mitchell will be that teacher, will carry that weight, will honor those ghosts until his last breath, until his final command, until the steel no longer calls and the souls inside can finally rest. That is enough. It has to be enough. It is all he has left to give. 2 weeks pass like water through fingers. 14 days of dawn formations and simulator runs and lessons that cut deeper than tactics. 14 days of watching 3 young soldiers transform from individuals into a crew. 14 days of Bull Mitchell teaching what cannot be taught in manuals, what can only be learned through the raw honesty of shared weight. The crew changes, slowly, subtly, but unmistakably. Tommy's anger does not disappear. Anger like his does not vanish. It transforms, becomes fuel instead of fire, becomes motivation instead of rage. He still looks at Bull with Rico's eyes, but now there is something else in that gaze. Not forgiveness, not yet, maybe never, but understanding, the beginning of wisdom. Jessica stops trusting the computer blindly, starts questioning, starts feeling. She tells Bull one morning that she woke from a nightmare about the drone missions, about faces she never saw, about children who might have been in buildings she designated as targets. Bull listens, does not offer comfort, offers only truth. The weight is real. The weight is permanent. The weight can be carried. Michael becomes the heart of the crew, the steady one, the reliable one. When Tommy and Jessica clash over tactics, when Bull's Parkinson's makes his instructions unclear, when the pressure builds and tempers flare, Michael is the one who smooths things over. His father taught him well, taught him that crews are families, that families fight but families endure. On the 15th day, General Webb arrives at the simulator building. With him comes Colonel Hartman and Dr. Sarah Chen and a fourth person Bull does not recognize. A woman in civilian clothes, mid-60s, gray hair pulled back, face that has known sorrow and survived it. Bull knows who she is before Webb speaks, knows it in his bones, in his guilt, in the weight he has carried for 40 years. Captain Mitchell, Webb says formally, I'd like you to meet Mrs. Elena Castellano, Sergeant Rico Castellano's widow. The world stops. The simulator building with its banks of computers and its humming air conditioning and its sterile military purpose falls away. There is only Bull and the woman whose husband he let die, the woman he has written to 1,000 times in his mind, but never in reality. The woman who raised a son alone because Bull chose tactics over humanity. Elena Castellano steps forward. She is smaller than Bull imagined, fragile looking. But her eyes are not fragile. Her eyes are steel wrapped in compassion, eyes that have cried every tear and still see clearly. Captain Mitchell, she says. Her voice carries the slight accent of her native Puerto Rico, musical even in this moment of wait. We meet at last. Bull cannot speak. His throat closes. His hands shake worse than ever. He wants to apologize, to explain, to beg forgiveness, but the words will not come. Elena reaches out, takes his shaking hands in hers. Her grip is firm, warm, alive. My grandson tells me you have been teaching him, she says, teaching him about his grandfather, about what happened, about the choice you made. Ma'am, Bull's voice cracks, 40 years of words damming up behind 40 years of silence. No, Elena says gently, let me speak first. I have waited 40 years for this moment. Let me say what needs saying. Bull nods, cannot do anything else. When they told me Rico was dead, Elena says, they said he died a hero. They said his sacrifice helped win the battle. They said I should be proud. And I was proud. I am proud. Rico was a soldier. He knew the risks. He accepted them. She pauses. Her eyes glisten, but no tears fall. She has cried her lifetime of tears already. But I was also angry, she continues. Angry at the war. Angry at everyone who came home when my Rico did not. I raised our son alone. Watched him grow up without a father. Watched him struggle. Watched him ask questions I could not answer. Why did Daddy have to die? Why did God take him? Why wasn't someone there to save him? Bull's vision blurs. Decades of suppressed emotion rising like floodwater. I blamed everyone, Elena says. The army, the president, Saddam Hussein, and yes, I blamed you. The young lieutenant who commanded my husband, who wrote the report that said his death was necessary, who got a medal while I got a folded flag. She squeezes his hands tighter. But Tommy's father, my son, he grew up to be a good man, a strong man. He joined the army 2 years later, served his time, came home, and he told me something. He said he finally understood. He said that war is not about good choices and bad choices. War is about impossible choices. He said that you carried Rico's death as much as we did, that you never forgot, never stopped grieving, never let it go. Elena's voice softens. And then Tommy enlisted, my grandson, my baby boy's baby boy, and he requested armor, requested to serve in tanks just like his grandfather. And when he heard about this program, about veterans teaching the next generation, he volunteered. He wanted to understand. I was terrified, terrified he would die like Rico, terrified I would lose another man I loved to steal and fire. She releases Bull's hands, reaches up, touches his weathered face with a gentleness that breaks something inside him. But then Tommy called me last week, she says, called me and told me about you, about your shaking hands and your honest heart, about how you told him the truth when lies would have been easier, about how you are teaching him not just how to fight, but how to carry the weight of fighting. And I knew I had to come, had to meet you, had to tell you something. Elena's voice is firm now, clear, carrying the authority of decades of survival. I forgive you, Captain Mitchell. I forgive you for the choice you made. I forgive you for surviving when Rico did not. I forgive you for carrying guilt that was never entirely yours to carry. Rico knew the risks. Rico chose to serve. Rico would not want you to spend your life drowning in what-ifs and should-haves. Tears streamed down Bull's face now, silent, unstoppable, 40 years worth. He loved you, you know, Elena says. Talked about you in his letters. Said you were a good officer. Said you cared about your men. Said he would follow you anywhere. He did follow you all the way to the end. That was his choice, his honor, his service. She steps back, straightens. Now you are teaching my grandson, teaching him what Rico's death taught you. That is how you honor my husband. Not by drowning in guilt, not by hating yourself, but by making sure the next generation is better, smarter, more prepared. That is Rico's legacy. You are helping build it. Bull finds his voice, raw, broken, but present. Mrs. Castellano, Elena, I have carried your husband with me every single day. I wrote you a letter 40 years ago, never sent it. Carried it in my wallet all this time. I need you to have it. Need you to know that I never forgot. Never stopped caring. Never stopped trying to make his death mean something. He pulls out his wallet with shaking hands. The letter is there, folded and refolded until the paper is thin as tissue, fragile as hope. He hands it to her. Elena takes it, does not open it, just holds it. I will read this, and I will cherish it, not because I need your words, but because they clearly need to be given. You have been carrying this too long. It is time to let it rest. She looks past Bull to where Tommy stands with Jessica and Michael. The crew has been watching silently, witnessing. Tommy, Elena calls. Come here, mijo. Tommy approaches. His face is unreadable, but he stands beside his grandmother with pride in his posture. Your grandfather would be proud of you, Elena says to him. Proud that you serve. Proud that you are learning from Captain Mitchell. Proud that you are turning anger into purpose. She looks at Bull. Both of you have been carrying ghosts. It is time to let them teach instead of haunt. Time to let the past inform the future instead of imprisoning it. Webb steps forward. His voice is formal, returning them to the present moment. Mrs. Castellano has agreed to observe today's training, the final simulator run before we move to live vehicle exercises tomorrow. I thought it was important for her to see what her husband's sacrifice has built, what Captain Mitchell has created here. Bull nods, cannot speak yet, too full of emotion, too raw. The crew returns to the simulator, Tommy to the gunner position, Jessica to the driver's seat, Michael to the loader station, Bull to the commander position. His hands still shake, his eyes are still wet, but he is lighter somehow, as if a weight he has carried so long he forgot it was there has shifted. Not gone, never gone, but distributed differently, shared. Elena sits in the observation area with Webb and Hartman and Chen. She watches her grandson settle into the same position her husband once held. Watches him place his hands on the same controls Rico once operated. Watches the past and future meet in steel. Final scenario, Bull says. His voice is steadier now, stronger. Everything we've learned, everything we've practiced. Full combat simulation, enemy armor, urban terrain, civilian presence, rules of engagement, no do-overs, no pauses, live fire decisions. He looks at his crew, his final crew. Remember what I taught you, question the computer, trust your instincts, work as one, bring everyone home. The scenario loads. The screens show a city street, Middle Eastern architecture, narrow alleys, market stalls, and somewhere in this maze, enemy armor, T-90 tanks, the latest Russian export, modern, dangerous, deadly. They begin. Jessica navigates the streets with a skill that would have taken Bull years to learn. She feels the terrain through the machine, anticipates obstacles, moves with a hybrid grace of technology married to instinct. Tommy scans for threats. His eyes move between the thermal sight and the visual display. The AI highlights potential targets, calculates firing solutions. But Tommy does not fire on AI recommendation alone. He looks, he questions, he confirms. Michael maintains the ammunition, tracks their supplies, anticipates what will be needed 3 shots before it is needed. His father's son, reliable as sunrise. Bull commands, not by ordering, by orchestrating, by asking questions instead of giving answers, by making them think, making them feel, making them become. The enemy appears, a T-90 hull down behind rubble. The AI screams targeting solution, high probability kill, clear shot. But Tommy hesitates. Sir, civilian movement behind the target. The AI says acceptable collateral. I don't accept it. Then don't take the shot, Bull says. Trust yourself. They maneuver. Find another angle, another solution. The shot is harder, lower probability, but zero civilian risk. Fire, Bull commands. Tommy fires, direct hit. The enemy tank erupts in simulated flame. Good, Bull says. The computer wanted the easy kill. You chose the right kill. Remember that. Easy and right are not always the same thing. The scenario intensifies. More enemy armor, more threats, more decisions. Each one a test, each one a lesson, each one a choice that carries weight. At one point, the AI recommends retreat, calculates that they are outnumbered. That withdrawal is optimal for survival. Bull asks the question he has asked 100 times in training. What does your gut say? Jessica studies the terrain. The computer is right about the numbers, but wrong about the terrain. They're funneling us into a kill zone. Retreat means death. So what do? We push, Tommy says. Aggressive, unexpected. Break their plan before they spring it. Agreed, Michael adds. We have the element of surprise. We use it or we lose it. Bull smiles, a rare expression. Then push. Your call, your command. I'm just along for the ride now. And they do. They push forward when logic says retreat. They engage when probability says flee. They trust their instincts over the computer's calculations. And they win. The scenario ends. Success, mission complete, crew intact, civilians safe, enemy defeated. Silence in the simulator. Then Tommy speaks. His voice is quiet, reflective. Sir, that moment when we chose to push instead of retreat, that was like Medina Ridge, wasn't it? That was the same kind of choice you made with my grandfather. Bull nods slowly. Similar, different specifics, same weight. You calculated that pushing gave you better odds than retreating. You made the tactical choice, the one that won the fight. But if we had been wrong, then you would carry that weight. Then you would live with that choice. That's command, Tommy. That's what I've been trying to teach you. Not how to always be right, how to make the call and live with the consequences. Tommy is quiet for a long moment. Then he says something Bull never expected to hear. Thank you for teaching me this, for showing me what my grandfather's death meant, for not letting it be meaningless. Bull's chest tightens. Your grandfather's death will never be meaningless. Not while I'm alive to teach what it taught me. Not while you're alive to carry his legacy forward. They climb out of the simulator. Elena is standing now, tears on her face, but smiling, actually smiling. That was beautiful, she says, watching you work together, watching my grandson use what you taught him, watching Rico's sacrifice become wisdom. She looks at Bull. This is how you honor the fallen, not with monuments, not with medals, with teaching, with passing forward, with making sure they died for something that matters. Webb approaches. Tomorrow you go live. Real vehicle, real terrain, real pressure. 2 weeks of field exercises, culminating in the evaluation at National Training Center. This is what everything has been building toward. He looks at Bull. Are they ready? Bull looks at his crew, at Tommy with Rico's eyes and his own hard-won wisdom, at Jessica with her ghost transformed into strength, at Michael with his father's steadiness and his own quiet courage. Yes, Bull says, they're ready, more ready than I was at their age, better than I was. That's the whole point. That night, Bull cannot sleep. Tomorrow they move from simulation to reality. Tomorrow his crew climbs into actual steel and drives actual ground and faces actual danger. The Parkinson's is worse tonight. Stress makes it worse. His hands shake violently. His legs feel uncertain. His body is failing faster now. But his mind is clear. His purpose is sharp. His teaching is nearly complete. He thinks about Rico Castellano, about forgiveness given when forgiveness was not asked for, about weight shared instead of carried alone, about the grace of a widow who lost everything and still found room for compassion. He thinks about Tommy, about the boy who came here hating him and is leaving understanding him, about how anger can be transformed into purpose, about how legacy is not what you leave behind, but what you build in others. He thinks about his crew, about how they have become what he always hoped they could be. Not perfect, not fearless, but capable, thoughtful, ready to carry the weight. At 0300, his phone buzzes. Text from Webb. Medical evaluation required before live exercises. 0600, doctor's orders. Bull stares at the message. Knows what it means. Knows they are worried about his Parkinson's. Worried he will collapse during field exercises. Worried he is too broken to continue. He types back slowly. Understood. Will be there. At 0500, Bull reports to the base hospital. The doctor is young, competent, professional. She runs tests, checks his vitals, observes his tremor, asks questions about his medication, his symptoms, his progression. Finally, she delivers the verdict Bull already knows is coming. Captain Mitchell, I cannot, in good conscience, clear you for field exercises. Your Parkinson's has progressed significantly. Your balance is impaired. Your fine motor control is severely compromised. You are at high risk for falls, for injury, for medical emergency. I'm recommending you be removed from active training status. Bull expected this, but hearing it still feels like a bullet to the chest. Doctor, I understand your concerns, but I need to finish this. Need to see my crew through the live exercises. Need to complete the mission. She shakes her head. I'm sorry, I cannot authorize it. The liability is too great. The risk is too high. What if I sign a waiver, accept full responsibility? That doesn't change my medical opinion. You are not fit for this duty. Bull sits in the examination room after she leaves, feels the weight of time running out, of purpose slipping away, of the final command being taken from him before it is complete. His phone rings. Webb. Bull, I heard. I'm sorry, but the doctor is right. We can't risk you in the field. You've done your job. You've taught them well. Let them finish without you. Marcus, please, don't take this from me. Don't let it end like this. Webb's voice is pained. It's not about what I want. It's about what's safe, what's right. You've given enough. Your body is telling you it's time to stop. Listen to it. My body has been telling me to stop for 2 years. I haven't listened yet. Not stopping now. Bull, one more mission, Marcus. One more command. That's all I'm asking. Let me see it through. Let me finish what I started. What Rico started 40 years ago. Silence on the line, then Webb sighs. I can't overrule the doctor officially, but if you were to observe, if you were to ride along as a passenger, not commanding, not in control, just teaching from the passenger seat, that might be possible. I'll take it, whatever you can give me. Tomorrow, 0600, field exercises begin. You'll ride in the support vehicle. You can communicate with the crew via radio, can offer advice. But you're not in command. Tommy is. He's the tank commander now. You're just the teacher. Understood? Bull understands. Understands that he is being pushed aside, that his time is ending, that the torch is being passed whether he is ready or not. But he also understands that this is how it should be. That teaching is not about holding on. It is about letting go, about trusting that what you planted will grow, about having faith in the seeds you sowed. Understood, Bull says. Tommy commands, I teach, that's enough. The next morning dawns gray and cold. The crew assembles at the vehicle bay. The XM-30 Sentinel sits waiting, sleek, deadly, beautiful in the way that weapons are beautiful, functional, purposeful, made for one thing and perfected at it. Tommy, Jessica, and Michael stand beside it. They are dressed in full combat gear now. Not simulation, reality, helmets and armor and the weight of actual responsibility. Tommy sees Bull arrive in the support vehicle. His face shows confusion, then understanding, then something that might be disappointment. Bull climbs out, walks to the crew. His gait is unsteady but determined. Change of plans, Bull says. Medical says I can't ride into the tank. Parkinson's too advanced, too dangerous. So Tommy, you're the tank commander now. This is your command, your crew, your mission. Tommy's face goes through several emotions. Sir, that's not right. You should be commanding. You've earned it. I've earned the right to teach. And sometimes teaching means stepping back, means trusting that the student is ready. Are you ready, Sergeant Castellano? Tommy straightens. Yes, sir. Then command. I'll be in the support vehicle. On the radio. Can offer advice if you need it. But the decisions are yours. The weight is yours. That's what you've been training for. That's what your grandfather died teaching. That command is not about control. It's about responsibility. Bull turns to Jessica and Michael. Take care of your TC. Watch his back. Cover his weaknesses. Be the crew you've trained to be. They nod, serious, ready. Webb appears with Hartman and a contingent of evaluators. Crew, mount up. We have 2 weeks of exercises ahead. Urban terrain today, desert tomorrow, mountains next week. Every scenario, every challenge, everything you'll face in real combat. Captain Mitchell has taught you well. Now show us what you've learned. The crew climbs into the XM-30. Tommy takes the commander position, the position Bull should be in, the position that is his by right and experience in decades of service. But Bull watches from the ground as the hatch closes, watches as his final crew becomes their own crew, watches as the student becomes the teacher. The exercises begin. For 2 weeks, Bull rides in the support vehicle, watches through cameras and thermal feeds as his crew navigates terrain that would have killed them 2 months ago, listens on the radio as they make decisions, communicates when they ask for advice, stays silent when they need to figure it out themselves. And they are magnificent. Tommy commands with a confidence that reminds Bull of Rico. Not reckless, not timid, balanced, he trusts his crew, questions the AI, makes the hard calls. Jessica drives with an artistry that Bull never achieved. She feels the ground through the treads, anticipates terrain before it appears on the displays, moves the 50-ton vehicle like a dancer. Michael loads with a speed and precision that would make David Park proud. Never late, never wrong, always ready. They face ambushes. They face mechanical failures. They face scenarios designed to break crews, and they do not break. But the real test comes on day 12, National Training Center, the Mojave Desert, the most realistic combat training in the world, where OPFOR, the opposing force, uses actual Soviet tactics, where nothing is simulated, where mistakes hurt. The mission is simple in concept, brutal in execution. Hold a mountain pass against numerically superior enemy armor, 4 hours until reinforcements arrive. If they fail, the enemy breaks through. If they succeed, they win. Bull rides in the command vehicle with Webb and Hartman and the evaluators. Watches his crew position the XM-30 in a hull-down defensive position. Watches them prepare. Watches them wait. The enemy comes at dawn, not a trickle, a flood. 10 armored vehicles against 1. The odds are designed to be impossible, designed to force retreat, designed to test doctrine and technology and human will. The XM-30's AI screams warnings. Enemy superior, recommend immediate withdrawal. Optimal survival probability by retreating to secondary position. Bull holds his breath, wondering if they will trust the computer, wondering if they will run. Tommy's voice comes over the radio, calm, certain. Negative on retreat. We hold. The AI is calculating numbers. I'm calculating terrain and timing. They have to come through this pass. It's a natural funnel. They're stronger, but we're smarter. We make them pay for every meter. We hold. Jessica's voice. Agreed. This position is defensible. We move, we die, we stay, we fight. Michael's voice. Ready on ammunition. We have enough for a sustained fight. Let's do this. Bull smiles, a fierce, proud smile. They learned, they understand, they are ready. The battle begins. The XM-30 fires. First round, first kill. Enemy vehicle erupts. The pass narrows, the enemy funnels. Exactly as Tommy predicted. But the enemy is good too. Trained, professional. They adapt. They maneuver. They bring fire on the XM-30's position. The tank rocks under near misses. Dust and smoke fill the pass. Visibility drops to nothing. The AI calculates probability of survival decreasing. Recommends retreat. Tommy ignores it. Thermal sight. Michael loads sabot. Jess, be ready to move if they flank. I've got the gun. They fight, not as individuals, as one organism. The crew Bull built, the crew Rico's death taught, the crew that understands weight and sacrifice and the cost of command. Enemy rounds hit close, too close. The XM-30's armor holds but barely. They are taking damage. The AI screams critical status. System failures mounting. And then Tommy makes the choice. The choice Bull has been waiting for. The choice that defines command. An enemy vehicle is positioned in a location where Tommy can kill it, but taking the shot exposes their flank, opens them to fire from another enemy vehicle. The tactical choice is clear. Don't take the shot. Preserve the tank. Survive. But Tommy sees something the AI does not. Sees that killing this enemy vehicle will create a blockage, will bottle up the remaining enemy armor, will turn the pass into a graveyard. One shot, high risk, high reward, the weight of command in a single decision. Tommy's voice over the radio, "Bull, I need advice. I have a shot that could win this, but it could also get us killed. Computer says don't take it. My gut says take it. What do you think?" This is the moment, the final lesson, the last command. Bull keys the radio. His voice is steady despite the shaking hands, despite the disease, despite everything. "Sergeant Castellano, I cannot tell you what to do. I can only tell you this. Your grandfather faced a moment like this. So did I. We made our choices, lived with them, died from them. Now it's your turn. You have the training, you have the crew, you have the wisdom bought with blood and tears. Trust it. Trust yourself. Whatever you decide, I'm proud of you. Your grandfather would be proud of you. Now make the call." Silence. 3 seconds that feel like 3 years. Then Tommy's voice, clear, certain, at peace. Taking the shot. "Just be ready to move. Michael, next round ready. Here we go." The XM-30 fires. Direct hit. The enemy vehicle explodes. Blocks the pass exactly as Tommy predicted. The remaining enemy armor is trapped. Sitting ducks. The crew systematically destroys them, one by one. Methodical, professional, victorious. When the last enemy vehicle is killed, when the smoke clears, when the 4-hour mark passes and reinforcements arrive, the XM-30 sits alone, damaged, scarred, but undefeated. The evaluators are silent, stunned. This was supposed to be impossible, was designed to be impossible. But this crew made it possible. Webb looks at Bull. They did it. They actually did it. "They did," Bull says. His voice is thick with emotion, with pride, with the knowledge that his final command is complete. They learned, they understand, they're ready. The crew climbs out of the XM-30, exhausted, covered in dust and sweat and the residue of battle, but standing, together, victorious. Tommy sees Bull climbing out of the command vehicle, crosses the distance between them, comes to attention, salutes. "Mission complete, sir. Pass held. Enemy destroyed, crew intact." Bull returns the salute. His hand shakes. Does not matter. The gesture is what matters. The respect, the acknowledgement, the passing of the torch. "Well done, Sergeant. Well done. Your grandfather would be proud. I'm proud. You commanded with wisdom and courage. You made the hard call, and you lived with it. That's what I've been trying to teach you. That's what command means." Tommy's face shows exhaustion and relief in something else, something that looks like peace. "I understand now," Tommy says, "why you chose what you chose that day, why my grandfather died. It wasn't about tactics. It wasn't about medals. It was about this, about making the choice that carries weight but also carries purpose, about living with the consequences and teaching others so they can do better." He extends his hand, not for a handshake, but holding something, a small object wrapped in cloth. "My grandmother wanted you to have this," Tommy says. "She gave it to me before we deployed. Told me to give it to you when I understood. I understand now." Bull takes the object, unwraps the cloth. Inside are dog tags, worn, old, familiar. Sergeant Rico Castellano's dog tags. Bull's vision blurs, his hands shake worse than ever, but he holds the tags carefully, reverently. The metal is cool, smooth, inscribed with a name and a number and a life cut short. "She said these belong with you," Tommy says. "Said you've been carrying my grandfather all along. Might as well carry something real instead of just guilt. Said these aren't a burden. They're a reminder, a teacher, a guide. Keep them, honor them, remember them." Bull cannot speak, can only nod, can only hold the tags and feel the weight and know that Elena was right. This is not burden. This is gift. This is grace. Webb approaches. The evaluation is complete. The XM-30 program is approved. Production begins next month. New doctrine will be written based on what you've taught here. Captain Mitchell, you've done what we asked and more. You've changed how we train tank commanders, changed how we think about technology and humanity, changed everything. He pauses. There's something else. The Secretary of the Army has approved a promotion, effective immediately. Major William Mitchell, retired, with full honors and recognition for service above and beyond. Bull looks at the oak leaves Webb is holding. Major, a rank he never achieved in active service. Never thought he would achieve. Never needed to achieve because rank was never the point. Service was the point. Teaching was the point. I don't need the promotion, Marcus, Bull says quietly. I know. That's why you're getting it. Accept it. Not for you, for every soldier you've taught, for every crew you've trained, for Rico, for Tommy, for all of them. Accept it as recognition that teaching is as valuable as fighting, that passing the torch matters as much as carrying it. Bull nods, lets Webb pin the oak leaves to his collar, feels the weight, different weight, not guilt, not burden, pride, purpose, completion. The ceremony is brief, military, appropriate. When it ends, the crew gathers around Bull, his final crew, his best crew, the ones who taught him as much as he taught them. What happens now, sir? Michael asks. Where do you go from here? Bull looks at them, at these young soldiers who came to him as individuals and are leaving as a team. At Tommy with his grandfather's courage and his own wisdom. At Jessica with her ghost transformed. At Michael with his father's legacy honored. Fort Benning and Bull says, boss, back to the museum, back to teaching. General Webb has offered me a permanent position. Director of Armor Heritage and Tactical Mentorship. Fancy title for an old soldier who tells stories. But stories matter. Legacy matters. Making sure the next generation learns from the last one. That matters more than anything. Will you keep teaching? Tommy asks. Until I can't anymore. Until the Parkinson's takes that from me too. But even then, even when I can't speak or move or function, the lessons will remain. In you. In everyone I've taught. That's what legacy means. It's not what you leave behind, it's what continues after you're gone. Jessica steps forward. Sir, permission to speak freely. Always. You taught us that weight can be carried, that ghosts can teach, that the past informs the future. But you also taught us something else, something you maybe didn't mean to teach. What's that, specialist? That strength isn't never breaking. Strength is breaking and serving anyway. Your hands shake, your body fails. But you're here, you taught, you led, you finished the mission. That's the real lesson. Not tactics, not technology. Perseverance, refusing to quit even when quitting would be easier. That's what we'll remember. That's what we'll teach when it's our turn. Bull's chest tightens. His eyes water. He has taught many things over many years to many soldiers. But perhaps this is the most important lesson. The one he lived without realizing he was teaching. Never give up. Never quit. Serve anyway. Carry the weight. Honor the fallen. Teach the future. That is enough. That has to be enough. That is everything. 6 months later, Fort Benning, the National Armor and Cavalry Heritage Center, a ceremony. The Castellano Mitchell Center for Armor Excellence is dedicated. A building, a program, a legacy made permanent. The bronze statue stands outside, a tank commander helping a young soldier into a vehicle, passing the torch, teaching, honoring, continuing. Bull stands at the podium, Major William Mitchell now, retired with honors, shaking worse than ever. Parkinson's progressing, time running short, but his voice is still strong, his purpose is still clear, his message is still vital. We dedicate this center to Sergeant Rico Castellano, Bull says, and to every soldier who died teaching us how to be better. This is not a monument to war. This is a school for wisdom, a place where young soldiers learn that command is not about winning. It's about carrying the weight, carrying the responsibility, carrying the future. He looks at the audience. Tommy is there in dress uniform. Jessica, Michael, Elena Castellano, David Park, Webb, Hartman, dozens of soldiers Bull has taught over the years, hundreds more who will be taught in the years to come. Rico Castellano died 40 years ago, Bull says, but he is not gone. He is here, in this building, in this program, in every soldier who learns from his sacrifice, in every commander who makes a hard choice and carries it with wisdom instead of guilt, in every crew that becomes family. He is here. He will always be here. Bull holds up Rico's dog tags, the tags Elena gave to Tommy, the tags Tommy gave to Bull, the tags that have traveled 40 years to arrive at this moment. These tags will hang in the main classroom, Bull says. where every student will see them, will ask about them, will learn the story, not the sanitized version, the true version, the version where a good man died and his commander carried that weight and eventually learned to transform it into purpose. That is the lesson. That is the legacy. That is what we honor here. He places the tags in a display case beside the statue. They catch the sunlight, gleam, endure. The ceremony ends. People gather, share stories, remember, honor. Bull stands alone for a moment, looking at the statue, at the center, at the future being built on the foundation of the past. He thinks about Rico, about the young man who died so others could learn, who taught through sacrifice, who lives on through those he left behind. He thinks about Tommy, about how the grandson carries the grandfather's legacy forward, about how anger transformed into purpose, about how understanding grew from pain. He thinks about his crew, about Jessica and Michael and all the others he has taught, about how they are teaching now, passing forward what they learned, continuing the chain. He thinks about himself, about 62 years of living, 40 years of carrying, 2 months of teaching that mattered more than all the years before. The Parkinsons will take him eventually, will steal his movement, his speech, his independence, but it cannot steal what he has built, cannot erase what he has taught, cannot stop the legacy from continuing. Bull Mitchell will die, but Major William Mitchell's lessons will live. Rico Castellano's sacrifice will teach. The weight will be carried by new hands, stronger hands, hands that learned from the mistakes of the past. That is redemption. That is service. That is enough. Bull turns away from the statue, walks toward the center, toward the classroom where young soldiers wait, toward his purpose, toward his final mission that never ends, because teaching never ends, because each generation must learn and pass forward and honor those who came before. He walks slowly, carefully, his body failing but his spirit unbroken, his hands shaking but his heart steady, his time running out but his legacy ensured. And behind him, the statue stands, bronze catching sunlight, tank commander and soldier, teacher and student, past and future meeting in steel and sacrifice, and the eternal truth that some lessons can only be learned through pain, but must be taught through love. Bull Mitchell teaches. Will teach until he cannot. Then others will teach. Then others after them. Forever. Because that is what soldiers do, what leaders do, what men and women of honor do. They serve, they carry, they teach, they refuse to quit. Even when the steel starts to bend, even when the souls inside start to break, even when time runs out and death approaches and the mission seems impossible, they serve anyway, because that is what Rico Castellano did, what Bull Mitchell does, what Tommy Castellano will do, what every soldier in this program will learn to do. Serve anyway, carry anyway, teach anyway, honor anyway, continue anyway. That is the last command, the eternal command, the only command that truly matters. Never give up, never forget, never stop teaching. And Bull Mitchell never does.